The morning sun streamed through the stained glass windows of Cedar Falls Community Church as Pastor Marcus Whitfield gripped the wooden pulpit with both hands. His congregation of 800 sat in rapt attention, their faces turned upward like flowers seeking light. Marcus had built this ministry from 12 faithful souls meeting in his living room to the largest evangelical church in their East Texas town, and moments like this reminded him why God had called him to preach. "Friends, I must speak a hard truth this morning," Marcus began, his voice carrying the authority that had made him a sought-after speaker across the region. "Our Catholic neighbors are preparing to build a shrine to Mary, and I cannot remain silent while souls hang in the balance." A murmur rippled through the sanctuary. Marcus raised his hand, and silence fell like a curtain. "The Virgin Mary is from the devil himself, a demonic deception leading precious souls straight to hell." His words rang out with conviction born from years of theological study and personal pain buried so deep he rarely acknowledged it anymore. The congregation erupted in enthusiastic amens and hallelujahs. Marcus felt the familiar surge of righteous fire that had driven him since childhood, when his mother's deathbed whispers to Mary had left him orphaned and confused at age 7. His evangelical relatives had explained that Catholic superstitions killed his mother's faith, and that truth had shaped every sermon for 23 years. "Pastor Marcus speaks God's truth," shouted elderly Mrs. Henderson from the third pew. "We won't let idol worship poison our town." Marcus nodded gravely. The Catholic Church plans to unveil this shrine next month during their feast day celebration. They're calling families from 3 counties to come worship a statue. "Friends, we cannot stand by while our neighbors are deceived." If stories like this move you and you believe in moments where faith meets the unexplainable, make sure you subscribe, because what happens next will challenge everything you think you know about divine intervention. His wife, Sarah, shifted uncomfortably in the front row, her green eyes reflecting worry he chose not to see. Their 16-year-old daughter, Isabella, stared at her hands, her dark hair falling like a curtain across her face. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood before St. Augustine Catholic Church holding a megaphone, his voice echoing off the red brick walls. 200 evangelical protesters flanked him, carrying signs reading, "Jesus is the only mediator," and "No idols in Cedar Falls." Father Rodriguez emerged from the church doors, his salt and pepper hair catching the afternoon light. The elderly priest had served this community for 30 years, baptizing babies, burying grandparents, and weathering every storm with quiet dignity. "Pastor Whitfield, surely we can discuss this peacefully," Father Rodriguez said, approaching with open hands. Marcus raised the megaphone. "Father, your shrine promotes devil worship. Mary cannot answer prayers. She's dead and buried, not sitting beside God's throne." The Catholic families gathered for feast day preparations stopped their work. Maria Santos clutched her rosary beads, her eyes filling with tears as Marcus's words cut through the sacred atmosphere they had created with flowers and candles. "Our Lady has brought healing to this community for generations," Father Rodriguez replied softly. "She points us always to her son Jesus." But Marcus was beyond hearing. His childhood pain and theological certainty fused into unshakable conviction. That evening, Isabella pushed her dinner around her plate, her appetite vanished since witnessing her father's harsh words at the church. Sarah served pot roast in silence, the tension thick as East Texas humidity. "Dad, Maria Santos is in my AP history class," Isabella finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She was crying today after what happened." Marcus looked up from his meal, his fork pausing midway to his mouth. "Isabella, that girl's family needs to hear the truth. Sometimes truth hurts before it heals. But she's the kindest person I know. She volunteers at the animal shelter every weekend and helps elderly Mrs. Peterson with groceries. How could someone so good be deceived by the devil?" Sarah's green eyes flashed warning signals across the table, but Marcus missed them entirely. "Satan disguises himself as an angel of light, sweetheart. Good works don't guarantee sound doctrine." The Santos family worships a dead woman instead of the living Christ. Isabella's chair scraped against the hardwood floor as she stood abruptly. Maybe you're wrong, Dad. Maybe God uses different people in different ways. The words hung in the air like smoke from a doused fire. Marcus felt his authority slipping away, grain by grain. 2 weeks later, Sarah's panicked phone call shattered Marcus's morning sermon preparation. Marcus, come to the hospital now. Isabella collapsed at school. He found his daughter unconscious in the emergency room, her face pale as winter moonlight. Dr. Patterson, a longtime church member, pulled Marcus aside with grim news. Pastor, we've run every test imaginable. Her vital signs are unstable, but we can't identify the cause. It's like her body is simply shutting down for no medical reason. Marcus gripped Sarah's trembling hand as they watched Isabella's labored breathing. The machines beeped steadily, each sound marking time in their nightmare. We need to try the experimental treatment in Houston, DR. Patterson continued. But honestly, Marcus, this is beyond our understanding. You might want to prepare yourselves. That night, Marcus knelt beside Isabella's hospital bed, his knees grinding against the cold linoleum floor. God, you know my heart. You know my faith. Please don't take my daughter. I've served you faithfully for 23 years. I've preached your truth without compromise. The silence felt heavier than lead. Outside the window, Cedar Falls slept peacefully while Marcus's world crumbled around his theological certainties. Word of Isabella's condition spread through Cedar Falls like ripples on still water. By the second day, Father Rodriguez appeared in the hospital corridor, his black cassock a stark contrast against the sterile white walls. Pastor Whitfield, I came to offer prayers for your daughter, the priest said quietly, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. Marcus felt his jaw clench instinctively. Father, I appreciate the gesture, but we have enough prayer coverage. Of course, but perhaps you'd allow me to simply sit with you? Grief knows no denominational boundaries. Before Marcus could respond, Sarah emerged from Isabella's room, her eyes red-rimmed from sleepless nights. Father Rodriguez, thank you for coming. Would you please pray for our daughter? Sarah, no, Marcus said sharply. We cannot compromise our beliefs, even now. The priest's gentle eyes held no judgment, only compassion. I understand your position, Pastor. I'll pray privately for Isabella's healing, asking our Lord Jesus Christ to show mercy. As Father Rodriguez walked away, Sarah turned to her husband with anguish carved into every feature. Marcus, our daughter is dying. Pride won't save her life. The words hit harder than any theological debate ever had. By the fifth day, Isabella's breathing had grown more labored. Dr. Patterson's morning rounds brought increasingly grim updates. Marcus hadn't left the hospital, surviving on vending machine coffee and fragments of sleep stolen in the uncomfortable visitor's chair. Pastor, her organs are beginning to show signs of failure, Dr. Patterson said softly. We've consulted specialists in Dallas, Houston, even the Mayo Clinic. No one can explain what's happening to Isabella. Marcus stared at his daughter's pale face. Her dark hair spread across the white pillowcase like spilled ink. The machines that once offered hope now seemed to mock his faith with their relentless beeping. That night, alone in the pediatric ward's family room, Marcus fell to his knees on the industrial carpet. God, where are you? I've preached your word faithfully. I've stood against false doctrine. Why won't you heal my daughter? Through the thin walls, he heard soft Spanish prayers drifting from the chapel. The Santos family knelt before a small wooden cross, praying for Isabella by name. Their words, though foreign to his ears, carried a desperation that matched his own breaking heart. For the first time in 23 years of ministry, Marcus wondered if his certainty had blinded him to something sacred. On the sixth morning, Marcus found 17-year-old Maria Santos waiting in the hospital hallway, clutching a small bouquet of wildflowers. Her dark eyes were swollen from crying, but her voice carried steady determination. Pastor Whitfield, may I speak with you about Isabella? Marcus nodded wearily, too exhausted for theological battles with a teenager. Isabella has been asking me questions about my faith for months. Maria began, her accent soft but clear. She wanted to understand why Catholics pray to Mary, why we light candles, why we believe differently than you teach. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Maria, I appreciate your friendship with Isabella, but please let me finish. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Isabella told me she was afraid to ask you these questions. She said you got so angry when people challenged your beliefs that she feared disappointing you more than she feared hell itself. The words struck Marcus like physical blows. His own daughter, afraid of his anger. She loves you so much, Pastor. She just wanted you to find peace instead of always fighting. Isabella said her deepest prayer was that you'd learn to see Jesus in everyone, not just people who worship exactly like you do. Maria held out the wildflowers with trembling hands. At 3 a.m, Marcus found himself alone in the hospital chapel, surrounded by symbols from multiple faiths. The small room held Protestant crosses, Catholic saints, Jewish stars, and Islamic crescents, all coexisting in peaceful silence that mocked his lifelong certainties. He collapsed onto the front pew, his body shaking with exhaustion and grief. God, I can't lose her. I can't bury my daughter like I buried my mother. The memory of his 7-year-old self surfaced unbidden. His mother's final whispered prayers to Mary, his childish confusion, his relatives' harsh explanations that Catholic superstitions had doomed her soul. 23 years of building ministry on that foundation of pain and certainty. Maybe I've been wrong, he whispered into the darkness, the words feeling like sacrilege and salvation simultaneously. Maybe my anger has blinded me to your love working through people I've condemned. He thought of Father Rodriguez's gentle compassion, Maria Santos's faithful friendship, the Spanish prayers offered for his Protestant daughter by Catholic hearts. How many times had he seen Christ's love and rejected it because it came wrapped in unfamiliar traditions? God, I don't care who you use anymore. Use Mary, use the Pope, use anyone. Just please save my daughter and teach me to love like you love. The surrender felt like dying and being reborn simultaneously. At exactly 3:17 a.m., soft golden light filled Isabella's hospital room, though no lamp had been turned on. Nurse Jennifer Walsh, making her routine rounds, stopped in the doorway, her breath catching in her throat. The sweetest fragrance of roses permeated the entire pediatric ward, though no flowers bloomed in the sterile environment. Other nurses gathered in the hallway, whispering about the impossible scent that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere. Isabella's eyes fluttered open for the first time in a week. Her vital signs, which had been failing for days, suddenly stabilized on every monitor. The machines that had been sounding alarms now hummed with normal readings. Dad! Isabella's voice was clear and strong, no longer the labored whisper of the dying. Marcus rushed to her bedside, tears streaming down his face. Isabella, sweetheart, you're awake. She was so beautiful, Dad, Isabella said, her dark eyes bright with wonder. The lady in blue held my hand and told me everything would be okay. She said you have a good heart, but you've been carrying too much pain. Dr. Patterson arrived within minutes, reviewing Isabella's charts with bewildered amazement. Every test now showed perfect health. Her organs functioned normally. The mysterious illness had vanished completely, leaving no trace of its presence. 3 days later, Marcus stood on the steps of St. Augustine Catholic Church, his pride dissolving like morning mist. Isabella's miraculous healing had shattered every theological wall he'd built around his wounded heart. Father Rodriguez opened the rectory door, surprise flickering across his weathered features. Pastor Whitfield, please come in. Marcus entered the simple room filled with books and crosses, his hands trembling like autumn leaves. Father, I owe you an apology that's 23 years overdue. The elderly priest poured 2 cups of coffee, his movements gentle and unhurried. Marcus, grief makes us say things we don't always mean. No, Father. I meant every hateful word. And that's what makes this so much worse. Marcus's voice cracked with emotion. I called your faith devil worship. I attacked everything you hold sacred. Yet when my daughter lay dying, your people prayed for her healing. Father Rodriguez sat across from him, his eyes holding decades of compassion. Love doesn't keep score, Marcus. Christ healed through many different hands. Isabella saw her father. She saw Mary in blue, holding her hand, healing her body. How can I continue preaching that Mary is from the devil when she saved my daughter's life? Tears flowed freely down Marcus's face as 23 years of buried pain finally found release. 1 month later, Cedar Falls witnessed something unprecedented. A joint prayer service between St. Augustine Catholic Church and Cedar Falls Community Church. 800 evangelicals and 300 Catholics gathered in the town square, their voices rising together in the Lord's Prayer. Marcus stood beside Father Rodriguez, their friendship now a testament to divine grace overcoming human pride. Friends, I must confess something publicly, Marcus began, his voice carrying across the crowd. I spent 23 years preaching division because I was afraid to face my own pain. Sarah held Isabella's hand tightly, watching her husband's transformation with tears of joy. Isabella, now completely healthy, had become a bridge between the youth groups, organizing joint service projects that amazed their parents. God's love is bigger than our denominational boxes, Marcus continued. He uses many different hands to accomplish his healing work. I'm grateful that when my daughter needed a miracle, heaven didn't ask for her theological credentials first. Father Rodriguez nodded, his gentle smile reflecting decades of patient wisdom. We serve the same Lord, who told us that by our love, all people would know we are his disciples. Have you ever witnessed something that science couldn't explain? Share your story in the comments below, and let us know if you've experienced moments where the impossible became possible. Today, Marcus and Father Rodriguez co-lead the community food bank, their partnership healing divisions that once seemed impossible to bridge.